This is DNet, the Disability Network. I'm Ken Cavanaugh.
And I'm Joanne Smith. A varied agenda on today's program. The World Blind Union held its 4th General Assembly in Toronto last August. 3 women from different parts of the world compare notes.
A diet program in Windsor, Ontario. Not a fad diet, a program of essential food requirements for people with AIDS.
And what you need to know about pets in your home, the upside and the downside.
Working with animals in competition, this week Jeff Adams introduces us to dressage.
We have it all, but first, here's the news roundup.
Days of tough times, economic stress to say the least for a lot of us as far as basic food needs go. There are many people with disabilities who have the added problem of special needs. From Windsor, Ontario, Cindy McCrae in this report on a new food bank program, getting the proper nutrition to people who have AIDS.
Sunday morning at Holy Name of Mary Church in Windsor. Father Mike Cardinal delivers a healing message to his congregation. It's about people with HIV and AIDS.
The reality is, they're people who in often cases have lost their jobs, can't work, are looking to retrain because they're staying healthier now, but who also need exceptionally healthy foods, and we can help.
The church bulletin contains a bag. Father Cardinal hopes parishioners will fill each one with food for the AIDS Committee of Windsor. The message has special meaning for Michael Gleason. He was diagnosed HIV positive 6 years ago. Now he's helping to set up the new food bank.
We ask our donors for specific food items that promotes health with people living with HIV and AIDS. Foods that are high in protein, low in sodium, and low in sugar.
Food bank will stock fresh fruit and vegetables. It will also be self-serve. People only take what they want.
The other kinds of foods that they don't like, they don't have to take home, and they can be left for other people to take. So it eliminates any kind of waste.
This is the room that will house the food bank when it's up and running. It's all part of a larger initiative called the Healthy Living Outreach Program. People who come here will be able to use the library, even get a massage. There are about 300 people in Windsor who are HIV positive. At least 80 of them are expected to use the food bank every month. Cindy McCrae, CBC News, Windsor.
Demonstrators gathered in front of the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington last week. They were there to protest against assisted suicide. The practice has been banned in more than half the country, but courts in New York and Washington states have ruled that ban unconstitutional. The U.S. Supreme Court now is due to make its ruling on the issue. Another ruling with a twist here in Canada. The Manitoba Human Rights Commission has decided against the builders of Winnipeg's Revolving Restaurant, saying that the restaurant does discriminate against wheelchair users. But at the same time, the commission ruled that the company doesn't have to fix the problem. There is difficulty involved for people who use wheelchairs. Now, a mechanical lift is available. But while the commission pointed out that Manitoba companies are required to install ramps wherever possible, and a ramp would have, in their words, been better in this case, the restaurant isn't in such a bad situation that changes will have to be made. School can be difficult for all of us at the best of times. We all have stories about the class bully or not having the right answer to a teacher's question. It's no different for Nick Sapina of Edmonton, but Sapina had an extra hurdle to overcome. Keith Daly has the story.
There's only one way to describe what Nick Sapina's grade school years were like: a nightmare.
In my 2nd grade, I was punished in front of the class every day.
Nick Sapina had a learning disability. The schoolyard beatings and constant humiliation from teachers almost caused him to end his life.
I did very seriously contemplate suicide because I knew I would get a failing report card, and I just couldn't take one more failing report card.
These are the images that Nick Sapina puts on canvas. Painful memories for all to see.
I was called to the board, and as usual, I would make a blunder or an error, and so I was asked to write the word drain, and instead I had a little letter reversal there, and I wrote the word brain instead. And so she wrote the word drain over the word brain, and she said, well, isn't this appropriate? Because it seems that God gave you a drain instead of a brain.
She couldn't have been more wrong. Nick Sapina's IQ tests were high. Today, he has a university degree. His story is common enough.
And I would say it's even more typical now because of the fact that kids are just not getting the help in the schools because of budget cuts and because of larger classrooms. The teachers just cannot give the time to special needs kids.
Sapina hopes his paintings will help others understand how devastating this can be. And for people like him,
I've always maintained that if you could express yourself, especially in using some creative means, then you always have a semblance of dignity.
for CBC News in Edmonton, I'm Kathy Daly.
That's this week's Roundup. Later in the program, we'll take a look at the stories of two people with disabilities who enjoy the company of pets. They're both dog owners, but their experiences are now leading them in opposite directions.
When we come back, an international panel of women who are blind compare notes. This is the Disability Network.
This program is brought to you in part by Royal Bank Financial Group, bringing you alternative format publications, one customer at a time.
Last summer, the World Blind Union met in Toronto, marking, among other things, the first ever International Blind Women's Forum. And there was an increase in women delegates to that union's convention. They made up 1/3 of the total. Producer Bill McQueen brought together 3 of those delegates to discuss the status of blind women.
In late summer, 600 persons who are blind or visually impaired came to Toronto from 160 countries. They attended the 4th General Assembly of the World Blind Union. They met to consider the problems faced by more than 50 million blind people around the world and to look for solutions. Blind or visually impaired women face many difficult obstacles to full citizenship in their societies. Example, in North America, 70% of blind or visually impaired women are unemployed. DNET joined 3 active women at the assembly. Anuradha Mowat from India, Kiki Nordstrom from Sweden, chair of the World Blind Union Committee on the Status of Blind Women, and Geraldine Brack from Paul River, British Columbia.
In my point of view, that there is so much around us that have to be changed, but most, I think, we have to fight attitudes in the societies that we live.
We have to be very strong in our approach and let it be realized that these are barriers that society puts on us.
Yes.
They are not barriers that the blindness puts on us. They are others that say that we are disabled. We don't feel that way. We feel that we are just as capable as anybody else. We now have technology that enables us to do things, and we feel that we are able to receive training so that we are just as capable to take employment as anybody else.
See, even in developing countries, there are blind and visually impaired women who are doing extremely well, but still, despite these excellent, successful ladies and doing well in professional life in various areas, a vast majority of disabled women are denied opportunities of employment.
We need statistics.
Yeah.
I mentioned here during the assembly some interesting figures that prove that women are getting poorer and men are getting richer. The gap between men and women widens, as well as a gap between rich and poor countries. Therefore, I think we have to fight with statistics and prove our situation.
With the training opportunities that are presently available, they mainly are in the area for those women who already have a good education and are going further and getting training in technology and are starting to take excellent positions within the workforce. But unless we are able to ensure that women from across the world are going to be part of that system and that we can pull them in on it through global policies and global programs, we are going to be widening the gap between those countries that can afford it than those countries that are still in the developing stage.
Another factor is that all over the world, the women's movement have been very strong, and some positive changes have come about everywhere, I think, globally. But for many years, in these movements of women in general, the issue of disabled women and blind women was never surfaced. I think the future for blind and visually impaired look very bright to me, because one has a fair evidence of growing consciousness among the blind and visually impaired women about their own dignity of life and about their own rights. And that is why we see here and there incidents of their participation in women's movement and their strong participation in the work of the disabled people's organizations.
I have, through the last 3.5 years, had the opportunity to follow blind and visually impaired women throughout the world. And I have also summarized their visions and hope for the future, such as basic education, how to read, learn to read and write, how to get access to Braille for blind girls and adult women. And why do I not want this education? Because I would like to have a job. Why do I want to have a job? Because I would like to feel independent. I would like to earn my own income so I can control my own life. That's a vision that I really would like to see in the future.
Women at the meeting of the World Blind Union called for another women's forum before the next General Assembly, which is scheduled for the year 2000. A location hasn't yet been chosen.
When we come back, the ups and downs of owning a pet.
Now, as Joanne is going to remind us, many people enjoy the company of pets. They can come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. Some require more care, others less.
Our next story looks at the experiences of two dog owners and how what they've discovered has led them down two diverging paths. Many, if not most people, have dreamed of owning a pet, including people with disabilities. How good or practical an idea is it to own a pet? Mark Beretta, a dog owner, had a unique introduction into the world of pets.
When I was first injured, my sister gave me some other animals to take care of to kind of keep me occupied and not think about my own troubles and with my own disability at the time. And so I raised some tigers and some other bigger cats, and if you want to consider those as pets. I found that I could take care of those guys, and when it comes to dogs and cats and so forth, I find that they're a joy and a lot of fun. Basically, Ivan was one of 8 in the animal shelter, and so we just went in and picked him out, mainly for my wife, who uses a wheelchair as an assistant animal to pull, and he pulls me along too.
Animal lover Diane Gillum has also experienced caring for many sorts of pets.
Jasper, my brother-in-law, found at a warehouse, and then this one was a stray. So we took her in, and as it turned out, she wasn't fixed. So we let Simba and her, Sassy, have a litter. And then, of course, I had to keep one of those kittens, so that left MG over there. The dog, I like her because she's very protective. If she sees anybody walking up that walkway, she barks and lets us know that somebody's out there. So I like her for the protection, and she's sweet. I mean, she loves all the cats. As you can see, not all the cats love her.
People are attracted to a wide variety of animals that come in all shapes and sizes. However, being a responsible pet owner is a long-term commitment. It's important to consider your lifestyle, the needs of the animal, and your ability to care for the pet.
The downside, as you know, is we're in the flu season. I I had it. Ivan here had it. And the downside was I had to clean up after him. He's still in the process of training. He still sometimes sees other dogs. He wants to go off and be friendly with them. So it's a little tough on that end, to try to control the animal.
I mean, we like to go out when we want to go out, and then we got to lock the dog up, because with the cats, we come home and always find something destroyed because she chases the cats. The dog is a lot of work. They need a lot of attention. They need a lot of running and walking. She's too strong. She's a very strong dog. So with my legs, I can't walk her. There's just no way. And we tie her up on the patio and she sits there for hours. And that's not fair. She needs to be able to run. So she needs a yard, a fenced-in yard. With 4 cats, you gotta scoop their litter every day. I mean, obviously you have to feed them every day. They're pretty, other than you gotta comb them. Because they get knotted and then you get fur everywhere. Hi, Luther. Hi, Dubber. The iguanas, I just pet them and I'd feed them. I mean, it's not hard to feed them. They're vegetarians.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, so
Toronto Humane Society veterinarian Dr. John Allen points out other responsibilities involved with owning a pet.
remember, cats and dogs are living to be 15, 18, 20 years of age, so it isn't something to be taken lightly. There's the monetary involvement, not only, food and care. Veterinary care is expensive. The once a year, the physical exam for vaccines and that type of a thing.
And a lot of disabled are on fixed incomes. A cat's shots are like $35 a year. Our dog's is $75. It's not cheap.
But if you can stretch your budget, the health benefits can far outweigh the costs.
They've got this unconditional love to give, so to speak. They love you for who you are.
I've heard that dogs and other pets don't acknowledge a disability, so, that's just like anyone else would have a pet.
We know it's a very positive adjunct to have animals in your life. It's good for cardiovascular, good for relaxation, puts a smile on everybody's face.
If I'm having a bad day and I'm, a little upset about something, I mean, all my animals are right there to try and make me feel better.
If anything, the disabled person, that pet is there one-to-one. The person who's there all the time would be definitely more attuned.
Being in tune with the needs of your pet, however, does not always lead to an easy decision.
Not knowing what kind of dog she was going to end up being, we shouldn't have got her in the first place.
Good girl.
We have to find her a new home because it's just not fair to her.
Ivan's lonely, and so we're thinking about getting another one, kind of like a his and her dog.
If you have any stories about your dogs, cats, or any other pets, we'd like to hear from you. Any tips? Drop us a line. We'll give you our address at the end of the show.
If you're not careful, I'll tell you about my Yorkshire Terrier. She owned me for 16 years. Her name was Roseprey Invincia Lady Tweedsmeer's Demitas.
Are you sure that's one dog or 6?
One dog, but a powerful one. She was a Yorkshire Terrier, but she was convinced she was a Great Dane. You gotta watch that.
I guess so.
We'll be right back with Jeff Adams on sports.
Now here's Jeff Adams with this week's Look at Sports.
Big boy, eh? I'd like you to meet Toronto's Maria Simpson. She's a world-class horsewoman. Her event is dressage, a sport of subtle interaction between horse and rider, producing exacting moves. Maria's riding has taken her all over the world, but it hasn't always been that way.
Maria Simpson practices equestrian dressage at CARD, the Community Association of Riding for the Disabled in Toronto.
The way I got into the program was I came for the fun of it through a camp through the Hugh McMillan Medical Center, and I thought this was a good, fun thing to get into. And at first, it's strictly therapy, and then as you get better and you learn to control your horse on your own, it turns into competition, if you wanted to. I mean, not everyone likes to compete and stuff. So it's just where you want to take it. I've been to the second international World Championships in Denmark, and I won the bronze, and that was in 91. And in 94, I went to England in Hartpury, and that was the third annual international World Championships, and I came out with the silver.
Daniel Simpson is a volunteer at CARD. Last summer, he and Maria were married. He's continuing his volunteer duties.
I had one incident where Maria had the horse was starting to canter, and it got spooked, and I was able to stop the horse and save Maria.
Dressage is a sport requiring constant communication between horse and rider.
And I have to get him bent looking in the way I'm going. So, and he is bending, he's responding to my leg. He's paying attention, as you can tell by his ears. I do know of some little kids who ride here. They always say, you know, one day I hope I can be in your shoes and do what you're doing now. And the answer I give them is as long as you keep doing what you're doing now and enjoying it, and you're not forced into it, then you will.
Maria is currently working at the Community Association of Riding for the Disabled in North York, Ontario. She continues to practice and train for future competitions and hopes to compete at the Paralympics in Sydney in the year 2000. There's a Canadian Association of Riding for people with disabilities, and if you're interested in learning, call us at DNET. I'm Jeff Adams. I'll see you again in a couple weeks, and in the meantime, chase your dreams. All right?
And that's our show. Remember, we'd like to hear from you. Send us your comments on our programming, both good and bad. We'd also like to hear your story ideas. I'm Ken Cavanaugh.
And I'm Joanne Smith. We'll see you again next week.
Don't forget you can write us at Disability Network, CBC Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W 1E6. That's Disability Network, CBC Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W 1E6.
Or you can fax us at 416-205-3399.
This program is brought to you in part by Royal Bank Financial Group, bringing you alternative format publications. One customer at a time. Call 1-800-ROYAL-97.